Because
I suppose it's themes. We've just gone through a massive health crisis with the pandemic. You know, the mid-80s, they were being hit with the AIDS crisis, gentrification of the city, where low-income families were being pushed out, institutionalised racism, internal corruption in the offices that we believe and trust in. So many of those elements and themes just sort of hark back to today. But more than anything, I think it's about bringing the absurd into the serious, and I kind of like the juxtaposition of the naivety of a puppet and this manifestation, this psychotic manifestation, really, of a drawing that's been made by Vincent's son Edgar that he brings to life and starts to represent a sort of internal tussle that Vincent's having with himself.
and Benedict
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, I obviously Bradley's work speaks for itself. From Doctor Strange to Patrick Melrose, and so I think that his talent was not in question. I think the sheer dynamism of the sound was incredible. I really understand that moment where they show action. It's just this moment where everyone is focused on that to watch him lead and come and actors was really exciting. And he's an actor who can really embody a split of the character. It's similar to Frankenstein of the National, where he played both the monster and also the creator. And so I knew he was capable of traversing these two very different and dark sides to Vincent. But I think even he bowled us over with his curiosity and his rigour and his just desire to play.
The puppet is, I've seen a bit of it, and people will be seeing more, which they will say now that Netflix is available today. But the puppet's a device to talk about love and loss. You've had your fair share of difficult times, you wrote about it in your book, mentioned it, incredibly painful. And just to say to people, if they haven't read it, your husband unexpectedly fell ill, went into a coma, came out of it, you were with him all the time through that retreat. He then didn't recognise you, and then you were diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, I mean, things coming through his hands. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, as you mentioned, my husband collapsed in 2018 and now he's 6 years old. I think more than anything, it's left me with a sense of fearlessness that life seemed to be short. And I know those feel like gratitudes that we have to share. But I think I feel so fortunate to be able to do what I do. Being able to write myself out of a crisis, I think was what's second. And I think maybe we need to really explore what it meant to be creative and how do you resolve and find some kind of resolution, and perhaps you find that through your creative mind. So I think the character Vincent is really important to that, and I think in many ways it also reflects the kind of creative journey I've gone on myself, where I've really had to pull and use language to make sense of an uptime world.
And also the vulnerability that was involved in going through surgery as you're able to do while trying to keep everything afloat and be the breadwinner. I'm also thinking of both from home and stories that make this sort of surgery of suddenly becoming carers.
100%. And I think if anything has given me a deeper understanding and respect, definitely for carers. I've been a carer myself for several years. Unfortunately, my husband's been in recovery, and that's been amazing. And very unexpected something like that. It was a really dark few years. But I think as a nation, we've gone through a really dark period. We've just gone through a pandemic. I know for some people who've victims of obviously breast cancer is a disease that can affect so many people. I think what I did experience was a reconfiguration physically and emotionally, and that is something to do with the transformation. I do think it's something transformative in the creation of this whole team. And so I recognise that there's something sort of deeply personal in the story of those movies.
And I suppose you also perhaps can use what you've learned in ways when you are then writing other characters, but maybe it also makes you see things, because I was looking through your work and a lot of people won't know everything that you've done. Do you think you've become more prolific because of it? Or sometimes people say, you know what, I haven't lived it.
I think it's got, when drama happens to a writer, it's the greatest gift to writers, and certainly it was where humour is something that really reflected on the book that I was kind of living in between. And there is a certain urgency about the things that I come into. It's more about my desire to express and to kind of make sense of the world now. And I feel like I'm incredibly creative, so it's a very strong creative team. The system, which is a fantastic production. And Jane Fenster at the helm, and I think we're all looking for champions. And I an alternate guide to the newspaper editor. So for me, the creative process has been essential. But I suppose I think the writers allow you to show a different world. I mean, this is a show that not only carries the journey of Vincent, but also carries the journey a detective, a brain, and happening in the 80s and more. And I feel like I was able to go into the world of something different. It's the fashion, my God, the fashion. I'm still searching for those kind of batwing sweatshirts that I must have left behind. Note to self, do not throw something out. I think it was the fashion side of the music, it felt like an incredible creation. You come out of punk, going educational romanticism, there was something that was really exciting about that period. There was a lot of disco. I remember being crazy about disco championships. Those still exist.
Absolutely fine. I'm ready to go for it.
There's so much about the time that was so alive. But they say a lot of things after the revolution. I feel like there was something in the 80s that had a sense of revolution to it. I think so much of the conflict and the pain that was going on, certainly the AIDS epidemic and the way that was perceived at that time, and the weaponisation of sexuality at that time, I think was really a possibility for you. I think that art and music but also against that. So for me it was a very positive, exciting time, but we also knew it was a period of rampant capitalism. There was the haves and have-nots, so there was so much about that era that feels very vivid to me after 20 years as well.
It feels very good to watch, and it's lovely to talk to you. Like, I think it's much of an exciting topic, but Eric is available on Netflix.
Just time before the end of the program to tell you about the Today podcast this week. Looking at the question I often say is the most important question in politics: whose side are you on? And why it is that the big party leaders are picking sides. On one hand, Keir Starmer is against Diane Abbott, it seems, but is also willing to say that he's a socialist. Rishi Sunak seems to be on the side of pensioners, giving them a tax break, but prosecuting young people, insisting that they should do some form of national service. Why do they make these decisions at all? Explained by the polling, or explained by the pundits we've got on. You can download and listen to it from now on BBC Sounds. So that's it from us today. Every London here in Salford. Our editors were Dan Buchanan and Kirsten McKenzie. The studio director was Piers Wise. And wherever you are, I hope you have a really good day. Don't get too overwhelmed by election campaigning.
BBC News at 9 o'clock. The Conservatives and Labour have both ruled out increasing VAT if they win the general election. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt made the Tories commitment in a newspaper article published last night and accused Labour of planning to put it up. That was immediately rejected by the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves. The Liberal Democrats say they would not look to raise VAT or income tax. Mr Hunt insisted the Conservatives would not put up income tax either. Many people will pay more because thresholds have been frozen, but Mr Hunt said that freeze would last only another 4 years.
In autumn of 2022, I took very difficult decisions to increase taxes. And now, in my budget and in the autumn statement last year, I've started to bring them down. Have I been able to cancel out all those tax rises? No, I had to make that commitment. So I can absolutely undertake that the threshold freeze that we introduced until 2028 will not continue after that.
The former Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott has suggested the Labour leadership is trying to purge the party's left wing ahead of the general election. Ms Abbott accused Labour of wanting to block her from running. Another left-wing prospective candidate, Faiza Shaheen, says she's also been told she won't be able to run. Police searching for a father and son who went missing in Glencoe in the Highlands say they found 2 bodies. Tom Parry, who's 49, and his 12-year-old son Richie were reported missing yesterday. The Israeli military has announced that it now has full operational control of the strategically important buffer zone along the border between Gaza and Egypt. The spokesman said the narrow strip of land, nearly 9 miles long, had served as Hamas's oxygen pipeline for smuggling weapons. A Hong Kong court has found 14 people guilty of subversion in the biggest case against pro-democracy campaigners since China imposed a national security law to crush dissent there. 2 people were acquitted. BBC
is BBC Radio 4, where this morning we'll find out more about the health benefits that volunteering your time, your labour, or even your spare room can bring. Michael Mosley investigates the power of helping others and the positive impact it can have on our cholesterol in just one thing here in 45 minutes. But now, here's Melvin Bragg with In Our Time.
Hello, for someone who denounced the papacy as a fraud, Marcellus of Padua lived a remarkably long time, from around 1275 to 1343. His major work was Defense of Pacis, or Defender of the Peace. There was little peace in his time, as the papacy, the Holy Roman Emperor, and the French king fought over who had supreme power on earth. Marcellus was clear that it was not the Pope. And in the last century he's been seen as an early advocate for popular sovereignty and republican democracy, a reflection of his central status in political philosophy, though perhaps not of his work itself. With me to discuss Marcellus of Padua are Annabel Brett, Professor of Political Thought and History at the University of Cambridge, George Garnett, Professor of Medieval History and Fellow and Tutor at St Hugh's College, University of Oxford, and Serena Ferrante, Professor of Medieval History at the University of Amsterdam. Serena, it's an unfamiliar name to many of us. Can you give us an idea of the background of Marcellus?
So Marcellus was a Paduan citizen. Padua is a city in the northeast of the Italian peninsula. He was born there. His father was probably a notary. But the very first document we have about his life is actually quite late. It dates from 1313, and we find Marcellus in Paris as the rector of the university. The rector at the time was a member of the student body. Marcellus was a master in the liberal arts, but not a student of the higher faculties, probably. Already from this, we can see that he has an interesting European background. He traveled a lot during his lifetime. He moved from Paris to Munich at a later stage, and then from Munich again to the Italian peninsula, and perhaps back to Munich again. So the most interesting thing about Marcellus, in my opinion, is that he produced his masterpiece at the beginning of his career. In 1324, Marcellus wrote The Defender of the Peace in Paris, as many manuscripts say. And the manuscripts perhaps circulated anonymously, although Marcellus' name is at the beginning of the work, although it's not entirely clear if he could be identified. And after writing this book, with perhaps the help of his friend and associate John of Jandun, he escaped to Munich because the book was proscribed by the papacy.
Why did it matter to Marcellus that Padua was his place of birth and growth?
So Marcellus' family came from what